I married the same man twice. The first time, he didn't know me. The second time, he chose me. And between those two moments exists a story no one believes when I tell it. Not my mother in Lagos, not my friends in London, not even the immigration officer in Canada who stamped our papers with a suspicious smile. Because how do you explain falling in love with someone who forgets you completely? My name is Adaeze. I was 29 when I moved from Nigeria to England with 1 suitcase, 2 degrees, and the kind of stubborn hope you only have when you are still young enough to believe that love and destiny can be planned. London was cold in ways weather alone cannot explain. People walked fast, conversations were short, eye contact was rare. I learned to shrink my laughter. I learned to speak more softly. I learned how to eat alone without feeling lonely, or at least I pretended. I met Daniel on a Tuesday, not at a cafe, not at a party, not during anything romantic. I met him when I slipped on wet pavement near Waterloo Station and nearly fell flat on my face. A hand caught my elbow, firm, warm, steady. "You all right?" he asked. American accent, deep voice, eyes that held attention without demanding it. I nodded, embarrassed. He didn't let go immediately, and strangely, I didn't want him to. We walked together for 5 minutes before realizing we were heading in the same direction. He worked in architecture. I worked in urban planning. It felt like coincidence. Later, I would wonder if coincidence was just destiny refusing to admit it had plans. We didn't fall in love quickly. We learned each other. He cooked badly but enthusiastically. I corrected him without mercy. He liked long walks along the Thames at night. I hated cold air but loved walking beside him. We argued about movies. He introduced me to American diners. I introduced him to Nigerian jollof that changed his understanding of happiness. Romance wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. His hand resting on my lower back when crossing crowded streets, the way he listened fully when I spoke, the way he paused before answering serious questions, like my words mattered enough to deserve thought. The first time he kissed me, it wasn't planned. We were in a train station, announcement sounds echoing, people rushing everywhere, and suddenly he was close, his hand brushing my cheek. A kiss that felt like a promise without language. I felt seen, not admired, not chased. Seen. 16 months later, he collapsed. No warning, no argument, no build-up. Just one ordinary morning turning into sirens and hospital lights. Brain injury, memory complications. Doctors used complicated words that meant one simple truth. He forgot parts of his life, including me. When he woke up, I stood beside his bed. He smiled politely, like a stranger. "Hi," he said, and the world split into before and after. The first weeks felt like grief disguised as routine. I visited daily. He treated me kindly, like a nurse, like a colleague, never like someone whose name once lived inside his chest. People told me to leave. "Start over," my friends said. "Love shouldn't be this hard." But love is not always easy. Sometimes it is patient. Sometimes it is stubborn. Sometimes it waits quietly while the other person finds their way back. He moved to Toronto for specialized recovery therapy. I followed. Not for him, that's what I told myself. For work, for opportunity, for fresh air, for lies I needed to survive. He didn't know our history, so we started again. Except this time, I couldn't lean on memories. I had to make him fall in love with me without knowing he already had. We met as new people. He laughed differently now, more cautiously. He asked deeper questions. He noticed details he hadn't before. He watched snowfall like a child seeing magic for the first time. And slowly, we became friends again. One evening, we walked along Lake Ontario, snow crunching beneath our boots. He stopped suddenly. "You feel familiar," he said. My heart stopped. How? I don't know, he admitted. Like I trust you too quickly. I smiled carefully. Maybe I'm just trustworthy. He laughed, but his eyes searched mine longer than necessary. I never told him we had dated. Doctors advised against forcing memories. I agreed. But inside, I lived with a constant question. Would he choose me without history? Or had our love depended on circumstances that no longer existed? Every moment became an experiment never spoken out loud. Would he reach for my hand? Would he notice when I felt sad? Would he miss me when I wasn't around? Love became an experiment without rules. It happened in Iceland, a work trip. Northern lights dancing across the sky like something unreal. We stood together in silence, cold biting our faces, green light painting his eyes. He turned to me slowly. I think I'm falling for you, he said, softly, carefully, like someone stepping on ice unsure if it would hold. My heart broke and healed at the same time. Are you sure? I asked. No, he said honestly, but I want to find out. He kissed me, different from before, less confident, more searching, more vulnerable, and somehow even deeper. Months later, during therapy, fragments returned, not full memories, flashes, a laugh, a kitchen, my voice. One evening, he stared at me intensely. Have we done this before? He asked. Silence filled the room. I could lie, I could protect him, I could protect myself. Instead, I told the truth. Yes, I said, we loved each other before. He didn't speak for a long time, not angry, not shocked, just thinking. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I wanted you to choose me, not remember me. Tears filled his eyes, not sadness, understanding. He proposed months later, not dramatic, no crowd, just us in a quiet park in Vancouver. I don't remember the first time, he said, but I know I don't want to lose you again. And that's how I married the same man twice. People ask if I miss the old version of him. I don't, because love isn't about finding the perfect person once. It's about choosing each other repeatedly, even when circumstances rewrite your story. He still forgets small things, where he left keys, what we ate yesterday, but he never forgets to hold my hand when crossing the street, and somehow that feels like memory enough. I thought marrying him again meant the story was finished. I thought love had survived the worst test. I thought we had earned peace. I was wrong. Marriage does not end a story. Sometimes it opens a door you didn't know existed, and sometimes that door should have stayed closed. We were living in Vancouver then, rain falling like quiet background music. Life felt gentle, safe, predictable. Daniel woke before me most mornings. He made coffee. Bad coffee. Still bad after 2 marriages. Some things never change. But something else had changed. Something small at first, easy to ignore. He started watching me when he thought I wasn't looking. Not romantic watching, not loving watching, observing, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. It began with dreams. He started waking at night, breathing hard, eyes unfocused. Just dreams, he said when I asked, but one night he whispered a name, not mine, a woman's name I had never heard before. I told myself it meant nothing. Memory recovery is messy, doctors had warned us. Fragments appear, disappear, distort. But the feeling stayed, a quiet unease settling into my bones. 2 weeks later, he asked me a strange question while we were cooking. Did we ever live near water before London? No, I answered immediately. He frowned. I keep seeing a house, blue walls, a dock. My chest tightened. That doesn't sound familiar. He nodded slowly, but he didn't look convinced. The first real crack came during therapy. I sat beside him as usual, listening, supporting. The therapist asked him about returning memories. He hesitated. There's something strange, he said carefully. "What kind of strange?" she asked. He glanced at me, then away. "I remember loving someone before, but it doesn't feel like Adaeze." The room became too quiet, the kind of silence that feels heavy, like gravity changed. I kept my face calm, supportive, understanding, but inside, something cold opened. After that session, he was distant, not cruel, not angry, just thinking, always thinking, as if his mind was rearranging reality. And I realized something terrifying. I had wanted him to choose me without memory, but I never considered what would happen if memory returned incorrectly. One evening, he showed me a sketch, architectural drawings, a house by the ocean, blue walls, large windows. "This place keeps coming back," he said. "Maybe it's just imagination," I suggested. He shook his head. "No, I know how the floor feels under my feet." I forced a smile. "Brains do strange things." He looked at me then, long, carefully. "Are you sure you've told me everything?" The question hung between us like a blade. I told myself love requires honesty, but love also requires timing, and I wasn't ready for that conversation yet, because there was something I had never told him, something I believed didn't matter anymore, something before the accident, before the first wedding, before everything changed. 3 days later, a letter arrived. No return address, handwritten, old-fashioned ink, addressed to Daniel. He opened it casually, then froze. His face changed, color draining slowly. "What?" I asked. He didn't answer, just handed me the paper. 4 words written clearly. "You married the wrong woman." My heart slammed against my ribs. "This is a joke," I said immediately, but my voice sounded distant, unconvincing. He watched me closely, not angry, not afraid, searching, always searching. That night he slept facing away from me, the first time since our second wedding, and I lay awake staring at the ceiling, understanding something I had tried to avoid. Love had survived loss, but now truth was coming, and truth does not always protect love. The next morning, he said something that changed everything. "I want to go to England," he said quietly. "Why?" "I need to see who I was." I swallowed. "And if you don't like who you find?" He met my eyes. "Then at least I'll know what's real." And that's when I understood. Episode 1 was never about losing memory. It was about what happens when memory returns differently. Because love isn't just about being chosen twice. Sometimes it's about surviving being chosen and then questioned. And I didn't yet know that the person who sent that letter was someone who once believed Daniel belonged to her. But that's a story for later, because the real danger wasn't the past. The real danger was what Daniel was starting to remember next. The truth is, I almost didn't go to England with him. That's something I never said out loud before, because part of me already knew what we might find there, and part of me wasn't sure our love would survive it. The plane felt too quiet. Daniel sat beside me, fingers intertwined with mine, but his thoughts were somewhere else. He had become softer since the letter arrived, more careful with his words, like every sentence had weight, like he was afraid of hurting me or discovering something that would. "I'm not looking for someone else," he said suddenly, staring straight ahead. "I know," I answered, but the truth was, I wasn't sure, not because I doubted him, because memory changes people, and I had already loved 2 versions of him. I didn't know if I could survive loving a third. London greeted us with cold rain and familiar streets. Waterloo Station looked exactly the same, the place where we first met, where I slipped, where his hand caught mine, where my life quietly shifted direction. He stood still for a long time, watching people move around us. "I feel something here," he said, "like echoes." I smiled gently. That's probably normal. But inside, I was shaking. The blue house was real. That was the first shock. Not in England, in Cornwall. We drove for hours following fragments of memory, and then suddenly, there it was. Blue walls, ocean air, a small dock stretching into restless water. Daniel stepped out of the car slowly, like someone approaching a ghost. "I've been here," he whispered. A woman opened the front door, mid-30s, dark hair, eyes that carried too much history. She looked at me first, then at him, and smiled. Not kindly, not cruelly, just knowingly. "You finally came back," she said. Her name was Elena, American, marine biologist, and once Daniel's fiancée. Before me, before London, before everything. I had known about her, but not like this, not deeply, not fully. Daniel had mentioned a serious relationship long ago, but by the time I entered his life, it was finished, or at least that's what I believed. We sat inside the blue house, air thick with unsaid things. Elena poured tea calmly. "You disappeared," she told him. "No explanation, just gone." Daniel looked lost. "I don't remember." She nodded. "I know." Her eyes shifted toward me. "And you're the woman he married twice." Not a question, a statement. I swallowed. "Yes." Then she said something that changed everything. "I didn't send the letter to break you," she said softly. "I sent it because I thought he deserved the full truth." My heart stopped. "What truth?" She hesitated, looking at Daniel, then back at me. "You didn't leave me because you stopped loving me," she told him. "You left because you were afraid of how deeply you loved." Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Daniel's breathing slowed. "What do you mean?" She continued gently. "You said loving me felt like losing yourself. You thought starting somewhere new would make you stronger." His eyes widened, fragments connecting. "And then," she added quietly, "you met her." She nodded toward me, "and became someone else." The realization hit me slowly. I wasn't competing with a lost love. I was part of a transformation he had chosen long before the accident. The memory loss didn't create a new Daniel. It revealed who he had been trying to become. We walked along the ocean later, just the two of us, wind loud, waves crashing. "I don't feel like I belong here," he admitted, "but I feel like I understand something now." "What?" He stopped walking, turned to me. "I didn't forget you because you weren't important." His voice trembled. "I forgot you because my brain broke." I laughed softly through sudden tears. "I know." "No," he said firmly. "You endured loving someone twice, and now I realize something." He stepped closer. "I didn't choose you once." He paused. "I chose you before memory, after memory, and now with full truth." That night we talked longer than we ever had. No secrets, no careful timing, just honesty. I told him my fear, that maybe he had loved Elena more. He smiled gently. "Different doesn't mean less," he said. "But you," his thumb brushed my cheek, "you feel like home even when I don't know where I am." We returned to Vancouver weeks later, something lighter between us. Not perfect, not magically healed, but real. And one evening, while cooking badly together again, he said something that stayed with me. "You know what I realized?" "What?" "Love isn't memory." He smiled softly. "It's recognition." People still ask me if marrying the same man twice felt strange. It didn't, because each time we were different people, and love isn't about finding one perfect version of someone. It's about choosing the version that stands in front of you now, again and again and again. And sometimes, the greatest proof of love isn't remembering everything. It's deciding to stay, even after you finally understand the whole story.